Hi, this is Paul with your Winning Investor Daily. So, I've been getting a lot of emails from people asking, "Hey, Paul, we know that you have been negative on Apple. And what do you think about it now?" Because as you can see from this stock chart, Apple, after going up and being celebrated for a little while as the world's biggest company, the world's first trillion-dollar company, has suddenly started going down. And the whole thing began after it announced its results for the last quarter, where it showed the world that its iPhone business, which is very important to Apple, really the most important part of Apple, is struggling. And for this video, I'm going to get into the business of Apple instead of speaking to the technology. And if you're interested to know about what I've been saying about Apple, about its issues with technology and innovation, you should go read my previous articles on Apple, where I've laid out my case for why I believe Apple has fallen behind and why that represents a huge, massive problem for Apple. However, in this video, I just want to go into business elements of why I still believe that Apple is a stock that should be sold. And yes, I see that it's gone down by something like 20%. And yes, I am aware that the world's greatest investor, Warren Buffett, owns something like $40 billion worth of this stock. However, I can also tell you that Apple's critical business is its iPhone. And as you can see from this chart, which shows shipments, and shipments means units. In other words, if Apple sells 100,000 units, that's recorded as a shipment. And you can see its shipments really peaked quite some time ago, really more than almost 5 years ago. So how has Apple really managed to make all this money and to stay at the very top of the smartphone market? And the answer comes from this price chart that is done by this very, very good research company. And we've shown you this tweet that was put together by Horace Didu, and he shows you that when the iPhone was introduced, the base price was $400. And of course, once you put in the additional features, it got much higher. However, today, the base price is well over $1,000 and the top price is nearly $1,500. And that answers the question that I posed to you, which is that how has Apple stayed at the top of the smartphone market when you consider the total value? It's because they have increased the price every single year. And for sure, the jump from Apple's original iPhone to the second and third and even fourth generation felt more than worth it. And personally, I had been using iPhones myself all the way until iPhone 6. And I felt that even though the iterations and innovations were small, it was worth paying for. However, I have absolutely felt that for the last many years, certainly since Steve Jobs' death, that the innovation has declined and the price increases are greater than they ever were for less and less in terms of true innovation that really matters. Things that I would use every day, things that would genuinely make my life easier and better. And there is a problem that Apple has created for itself, because if shipments are going down and price is going up, it's telling you that it's unable to sell as many of the phones as it could before at lower prices. And Apple has been stumbling around in trying to find a new way to keep its growth going, keep its business growing. And its CEO, Tim Cook, has made this bet on trying to lock people into the iPhone. And they're trying to make it very difficult for you to leave their platform. And what he has tried to do is build the suite of services around it, Apple Music and its cloud platform. And thus far, it's clearly not working, being that the shipments continue to move down. In other words, moving prices up has become a major issue for Apple. And there's another problem that Apple faces, which is that the smartphone market, of which the iPhone still has the largest market share, Apple and Samsung have the largest market share. However, it is now a mature and slightly declining market. And as you can see from this last chart, you can see that the smartphone market is expected to decline. And that poses now a major sort of sector risk for Apple, which is that they would need to be able to gain market share while trying to raise prices. And that poses a problem that is beyond anything that I believe is currently priced into Apple stock, and which is why I have been negative on Apple for some period of time, because I anticipated a lot of these risks to be priced into Apple shares. However, in truth, I never expected Warren Buffett to bring 30, 40 billion in and bid the price up from something like about $100 to something like $180. So at this point, unless there is some new way of growth that is going to show up in the next 6 to 12 months, I would expect Apple shares to go down slowly, because of the fact that Apple does have hundreds of billions of dollars in cash, and so it can buy back stock as its stocks drips down. And it's completely possible that Warren Buffett may step up and buy even more shares. Also, Apple shares do pay a dividend, and there is a substantial market among people to own Apple stock, because it is a beloved company and the iPhone is still a beloved product, and lots of people make decisions on what stocks to buy on that basis. However, sooner rather than later, every stock ultimately reflects its business. And Apple, on that level, has now three things going for it that are going in the wrong direction. It's raising prices when it has no business justification for doing it. And the business justification would be innovation, convenience, design, and Apple is behind on all those fronts. It is losing market share on its lowest end phones to Chinese manufacturers like Xiaomi and Huawei and Oppo that are taking share in global markets. So that represents a big deal. And finally, the overall smartphone market is now mature and going into decline. So for all of these reasons, I would tell you that I would stay away from Apple stock, even though it has gone down by 20%. And while it's unlikely that Apple stock is going to collapse overnight or in a week or a month, over time, I believe that Apple stock will continue to decline because its business is in decline. So that's my winning investor daily for you this week. It's about Apple and me saying that Apple stock, I believe, in the medium to long term is going to continue to go down. In the short term, buybacks and Warren Buffett could keep it at these levels or even move it slightly higher. So I'll have another video for you next week. Until then, this is Paul saying bye